Hey, what's going on? My name's Vit, and in this video, we are going to be talking about Samurai. Level 100 Dawntrail Samurai has been such a blast. I picked this job up about 2 weeks ago, give or take, on my alt character here. And I managed to clear the entire Savage tier on Samurai. I'm still very new to this job. I'm still learning the ropes. You might think that I've been studying the blade my whole life. I bought this katana in like high school at the mall, and it's been sitting in a closet ever since, so I thought I'd break it out for this video, but ignore that. But yeah, I just picked up this job like 2 weeks ago, and I've been having a ton of fun with it, to the point where I would say Samurai might be the best designed melee job in Final Fantasy XIV at the moment, at least at level 100. There's so much I love about this job, and I know in the past I've said that it's just okay, I don't really like the cast times, blah blah blah, but it's really grown on me quite a lot. There's a lot to this job that the other jobs don't have. We're going to go over all that stuff, but yeah, I don't know. It's just such a fun job, and it is incredibly good in this current Savage tier. Maybe, you know, I think Viper is up there with it as well, but I don't know. I've just been having a blast. I am no expert on Samurai. Again, I've just started learning it, so I might, you know, mess some stuff up. I am not smooth with this job by any means, but I have a good understanding of how the rotation works. I've talked to other Samurai players and confirmed that I'm doing things right, because I kind of just picked it up and I've been trying to figure it out for myself. We're going to talk about some of that, but I have a pretty good idea of how it all works now. So let's just jump right in. Let me get this thing out of here, and we'll talk all about it. Alright, so where do I even start with Samurai? I guess starting from scratch, we'll take a look at the job gauge. Basically, I'm not going to go too in-depth here. This is not a guide or anything, but you basically have 3 different combos that put these stickers, is what people often call them, on your job gauge. You get 3 different ones from each of the 3 combos. Let me put down a striking dummy here. And once you do each of those 3 combos, as you'll see, the stickers start filling up your job gauge, and once you have all 3, you can cash them out for Madare, which is like your strong attack, or you can cash out just one of them for Higanbana. And this system is what makes Samurai so fun, in my opinion. So as you saw, I used all 3 and got a Madare. And this core combo system is the basis for why Samurai is just as flexible as it is, in my opinion, because each of these combos, there's 2 3-part combos and 1 2-part combo. The 3-part combos each end in a positional, and the 2-part combo has no positionals. So your positionals are super flexible. What combo you do when is flexible. You can do any of these combos in any order. So whenever you're doing a fight and you know that you need to go for a flank, like you can do your flank combo, the one that ends on the positional. You can do the rear. There's just ways to work around it. It's very nice coming from Dragoon, personally, where, you know, everything is so set in stone, it's so rigid. Your positionals are all fixed in place. And, you know, just having that flexibility really offers a lot. The other main thing that they added with Dawntrail, well, they didn't add, you know, the combo system, but the one thing that they added recently in Dawntrail, actually in a patch, not even at launch, you'll see I'm sitting on this Kaishi Setsugeka, which is the follow-up to Madare, so it lets you just do another Madare after your first one. And in Endwalker, you were only able to do that following up with Meikyo, which Meikyo basically just lets you not have to do the full combo, you just do the finisher for each combo. In Endwalker, when you did that, you got the follow-up to Madare, but now you get that follow-up on every single Madare that you do, which is really cool. You just saw the new Tendo animation as well. So I'm kind of all over the place at the moment, but whenever you do a Madare, you get a free second Madare, basically. And That's something that they just recently added. It's not tied to Mekio at all. So whenever I press Madare, you'll see Kaishi Setsugeka pop up. And what's really cool about this, that is pretty much the new thing with Samurai that makes it so good and so flexible, is that you don't need to spend this immediately. Before, if you pressed any other buttons, it would break the combo and this would disappear. But now, you can actually just keep going. You can build up a whole new set of stickers on your gauge. And I'm about to run out of the timer, so I might drop this. I did, but basically you can keep this one banked up, build up another Madare, and then basically just have 3 back-to-back, which takes this job to a whole nother level. It's pretty insane what you can do. Because the other thing to note about this job is that Madare, as well as Higanbana, which is your 1 sticker spender. I'm doing the wrong buttons here. Each of those have insane range for some reason. They're literally double max melee range from every other job. So you'll see I can be, how far? All the way out here and still hit Madare, which is kind of insane for this Savage tier with all of the melee uptime stuff that is happening. There's at least an instance in every one of the fights where this is incredibly useful. Maybe less so in M1S, but in M2, M3, M4, M4 has like multiple instances where you use this extra range. This is just something that none of the other melee have. And it's funny because you'd think like, oh, maybe Dark Knight's massive greatsword or Dragoon's lance, like you'd think those might have a bit more reach, but no. Samurai's little katana is what actually has, you know, insane range on it. But here, as you can see, I didn't mess up the timers this time. You can bank one of these Kaishi Setsugekas and use this. Like, you can hold it and just set up your burst in interesting ways. You can hold it for uptime when you need to be out further than max melee. There's just a lot of use cases for this where, you know, you don't have to spend it immediately, and that just adds so much flexibility to this job. On top of all of the flexibility that you already have on Samurai, just based on the different combos and how it works, it's kind of crazy, actually. When you look at the other melee and how rigid they are in like just their basic rotation, their basic combo, like their filler GCDs, like Samurai just has so much more going on for it. Dragoon has a lot too. I'm going to keep comparing it to that because that's my main and, you know, what I'm most comfortable on. But I don't know. There's something about this basic GCD combo system that like just really works well in my opinion. And in the fights, it gives you a lot of flexibility to just position yourself differently. You can also use these stored up charges of your Madares to like account for positionals. Like, let's say I've got this flank coming up and I can't hit the flank, I have to be in front of the boss. I could always use that banked Madare that I have as well, just to accommodate for the positionals that I need. And this just comes up a lot. Like, every time you're on your 2-minute windows, you kind of want to spend your Madares quickly because, you know, you want to fit them under buffs. But outside of that, like, you get a lot of Madares outside of burst as well. And, like, it just gives you a lot of room to move things around. Like, people joke about the freestyle samurai, which I find myself at fault of as well. Which is basically just doing your own thing, pressing whatever buttons you want. And I feel like you can kind of get away with it with Dawntrail Samurai. There's definitely a rotation that you want to be following. There's a way to set up your burst in an appropriate way. But like, you can kind of get away with just like trying to put everything under buffs as best you can. Try to keep your Higanbana, which is your dot, rolling smoothly. So like keep it refreshed right on time, which gets a bit tricky. This was something in Endwalker that was pretty straightforward. You basically just did your rotation, your burst would come up at pretty much the correct time of when you had your gauge full with all 3 stickers, and then you would just go into your burst. But in Dawntrail, it's a little different. If you try to do this, where you try to build everything going into the burst naturally, and then go into it from here, you'll find that Higginbana slowly starts to drift, and you don't refresh it as quickly as you would like to. So what you actually need to do is to start prepping your gauge sooner. When your burst is coming up, you need to Mechio and kind of set it up before the burst, whereas previously in Endwalker, I believe you would Mechio in the burst, but now it's like you got to do it beforehand, you got to time it correctly. You basically never want to use Yukikaze under Mechio as well, just because it's easier to get this 2-part combo out. It's just kind of wasteful to use Mechio on it, which skips the previous steps. So, you know, whenever you use Mechio, you want to use it on Gecko or Kasha, because you're skipping 2 other GCDs to get to that finishing GCD. So, long story short, I'm kind of, again, all over the place. I don't really know where to go with this video, but I'm just trying to share some initial thoughts. The rotation feels quite different than it did in Endwalker, which is my point here. Just trying to line up Higginbana correctly. Like when I first started playing this job, again, I didn't really look at any guides or anything like that. I was just trying to figure it out myself, and I noticed I kept drifting this later and later. So it's really just a matter of using Mechio as your burst is coming up, so that you can go into it with, you know, a full Madare, and then, you know, maybe have 1 Mechio stack left over to use Gecko and refresh Higginbana as you would normally. But yeah, it's there's a lot that just goes into this rotation. I'm just gonna spend my gauge here. It's like, man, there's just so much to it. I don't even know where to begin. I guess I can just do the full opener here. I already have 1 sticker. I'll just pretend that I don't. But you can pre-pull Mechio at 15 seconds. Typically on Samurai, you just sprint in with the countdown, which is always funny to me coming from Dragoon or other jobs that have a gap closer. So I usually sprint at 10 seconds. You can true north at 5. And then you just go in and start doing the full rotation. Again, I'm not trying to make this like a guide here or anything, but I will hit the boss, the imaginary boss that we're working with, just so you can see what some of the buttons look like. But I don't know, it just really feels like there is so much planning and thought that goes into literally every moment of this job's game plan. Whether that's the burst, the setup for the burst, even just the filler, like we're in right now. Like, the burst is fully over, and right now, you know, I'm not doing much other than my combo, but there's even thought involved here as far as which combo do I want to do. Obviously on a striking dummy, it really doesn't matter, but in an actual fight, you know, there's a bit more thought there. And here, as you can see, I can store up that Madare. I can use it whenever I want. I can build up another one. This is really good for uptime situations. I just overcapped on my gauge as well. But for example, in M4S, when the boss breaks apart the stage in the way that she does in the normal mode, it's really hard to keep uptime on a lot of melee jobs there because the boss just does so much damage. You typically have to run out, but on Samurai, you can actually set it up so you have those 3 banked Madares, and you can go off to the safe spot and just sit there and hit those Madares from safety, and you get like 3 super powerful GCDs where you're just chilling. Like, it takes a lot of setup and planning to do that. Obviously, you get the hang of it, and it's really not too bad, but, you know, I still screw that up. And we're coming up on the 2-minute burst here. I'll try to do that just to show it. But, yeah, I don't know really what else to say about this job. I've just been having so much fun with it. I guess the other thing to talk about is Third Eye, or whatever it's called nowadays. Alright, so Higginbana is falling off. We can refresh that. I might not have did that perfectly, but it is what it is. You can do the rest of your burst. Like I was saying about Third Eye, there's even a lot of thought and planning that goes into that, because you really want to be optimizing Third Eye, which is your personal shield, because whenever you use this and it breaks, it gives you gauge. It gives you 10 gauge, your Kenki, which just turns into pure damage, basically. So if you can get the most uses out of this, Tengetsu it's called now. I'm going to keep calling it Third Eye because Third Eye's cooler and more memorable in my opinion. But yeah, if you can really like try to optimize that in fights, like whenever you're taking damage, a lot of samurais even take damage intentionally when they can get away with it in order to maximize those Tengetsu uses, have it break more often. There's a lot of fun stuff that you can do with that like just no other job has. Like I guess Reaper has their shield, but like they don't really get anything out of it breaking. They just kind of get like a party-wide heal, which is nice, but like samurai, like whenever their shield breaks, it's literally just more free damage for them. So like they're fully incentivized to use this, plus it's every 15 seconds. It's a 10% damage mitt, so it's like that's pretty good. And it also restores your HP as well, so it's like when it breaks you get a regen. So I don't know, there's just so much about this job that's like insanely good in my opinion. I think the one thing that I've been enjoying the most is literally just the range. Like I said, there's at least an instance or two in each of the Savage fights, save for M1. M1 doesn't really have any crazy uptime stuff going for it. Not that I can think of off the top of my head at least. But in every other fight, it's like, man, being able to just back off the boss when the other jobs like would have to take downtime and just be able to hit from like this far away. I believe it's a 6 Yalm radius on Madare and Higanbana, and it's just like, man, it feels so good. It's so rewarding as well when you set up your rotation correctly to line up with those instances, because again, you know, Madare takes potentially 8 GCDs to get it prepped. I mean, if you're using Mechio, it could be 3 or 4, but it's still a lot of setup, so you've got to have that one banked, ready to use when you need that uptime. And that gets really interesting, just trying to optimize that, trying to plan around that. There's instances like in M4S, the Witch Hunt mechanic, where you're constantly doing those donut point blank AoE dodges in and out. Like you can be out and hitting Madare and Higanbana as well. And it's just super interesting trying to set up those abilities while doing the mechanic. And man, it's a good time, because on Dragoon, like, what am I going to do? I back out and throw a spear, I guess, which is not interesting at all. But even on Samurai, you can get enhanced ranged attacks. Like if you backdash first, your ranged attack gets buffed to 270 potency. I don't know why not like every other melee job doesn't have something like this. I know Reaper has something similar, but like Dragoon should have an enhanced piercing talent if you do like an elusive first, right? Because this is not a small buff on this ability. It goes from 100 potency to 270 potency after you do your backstep. And then you can just dash back in, and it's like super satisfying to do. I don't know. It's like, obviously this is not crazy stuff, but like every part about this job just feels really good. It feels rewarding. It feels like you can just pull off some really like fun, stylish stuff. Even if you're not playing perfectly, like whenever you're hitting Madare, like all of the hits are just incredibly satisfying. Like it's wild how good this job actually feels to play, just landing some of these abilities. Like whenever you hit Ogi under buffs and like you're in the right spot during a mechanic, like there's just no better feeling. We also got Zanchin, which is the new, what level is this? 96 ability? This is just a 50 gauge spender after Ikki Shoten, which is like your 2-minute cooldown. And, you know, it's okay. It just does more damage in a big cone. You do have to kind of plan around it. If you spend all your gauge before your burst, you might not have the gauge for that, as well as Senai. Is that how you pronounce that? I'm gonna butcher some of these names. Hisatsu, whatever you want to call it. I'm still learning some of the names for these abilities. But you do have to make sure you have enough of your gauge for both of those abilities under burst. I guess it's pretty straightforward, but you know, sometimes I won't have the gauge for Senai and I'll really feel it and it'll get delayed and it's, you know, it's not great. So that's something you got to watch out for. What other upgrades did we get? We got the upgrade to Tengetsu from Third Eye, which I already mentioned. You know, having a regen on it is really cool. It just gives you a little bit more survivability, which is nice. And then our big level 100 ability, which is Tendo, I believe it's called. So whenever you use Mekio, which lets you skip your combo routes and just immediately do your finishers to build your gauge, you get Tendo Setsugeka, which is basically just like a really powered up Madare. Does 1020 potency. Does I believe it's always a crit, maybe? Yeah, it's always a critical hit. It's not always direct, but I don't know. It's big, consistent damage, and it's super flashy, feels good to hit. It's basically just an upgrade to Madare, though. It's nothing too crazy, but like I was saying earlier, the biggest change really just comes from that hit that you get banked. So whenever you do your Madare, you get that follow-up Madare, and that has truly changed how Samurai plays, because you just don't have to spend it immediately. It gives you way more flexibility. And man, like I was saying, there's just nothing like having 3 Madares back to back. Especially when you're forced to be out of max melee range and you can just sit there doing, you know, how many potency are these? 640 on normal Madare. That's like over 2000 potency for those 3 hits, when other melee would be sitting there throwing their ranged attack. Like, it's a good feeling. That's, you know, I don't know what else there is to say about Samurai. It's been a lot of fun. It was really a big struggle for me personally, learning this job. I was not used to all of the thought that goes into it, all of the planning, all of the different options that you have. Like, I am used to pretty rigid jobs, at least when it comes to Dragoon. So trying to plan around this, trying to like watch the party's buffs when they're coming out. Obviously you can go off of your 2-minute cooldowns as well, like Iki Shoten, which is on a 2-minute cooldown. You can kind of watch that to see when buffs are coming up. You can watch Senai, that's on a minute buff, or a minute cooldown. So you can watch that and know when the 2-minute buffs, the party buffs are coming up. But, you know, that's kind of the name of the game with Samurai. It's really just pay attention to what the party's doing, try to fit everything under burst, try to keep Higanbana, your dot, refreshed on time, because you can pretty much refresh it within a second of it ending every single time if you do it correctly. It always falls apart for me halfway through these fights. Like at like the 5-6 minute mark, I always just end up freestyling at that point. But yeah, I don't know. It feels incredibly rewarding to play this job when you play it correctly, right? So that's my big takeaway with Samurai. I've still got a lot to learn for myself, but I don't know. I'm having a blast with it. This is kind of just my for fun job right now because I'm not very good at it. I'm just pressing random buttons right now, so don't take this as any of my actual gameplay, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else there is to say about this job, other than the fact that I'm going to keep playing it in Savage, keep trying to improve. Maybe I'll look at, you know, some more resources on how to actually play it at some point, if there's like a strict filler rotation that you're supposed to be doing, but as far as I know, basically just Mekio leading into Burst, and I've gotten the feel for it pretty good, so I'm learning every time I play it, and that is one of my favorite feelings in this game, is just learning new things and improving, because there's a whole lot going on Samurai personally, so at least for me. personally. So, I don't know. How does it compare to the other melee? Like I said, it couldn't be further on the opposite side of the spectrum on the melees from Dragoon. Dragoon is fixed, it's static, it's rigid. Samurai's a bit more freeform. You know, you can kind of do whatever on it, and it still works. Obviously, there are optimal ways to do things, but I don't know. You can kind of get away with making some little mistakes here and there. If you're not perfect, on Dragoon, it's like you got to be pretty locked in. You do on Samurai as well, but it's just like the feel of it. I don't really know how to describe it, but same thing for like Ninja. Ninja, I would say, is more in line with like Dragoon even, because it feels like there's a lot you can do on Ninja, but there's a very specific way that you have to do it. I guess that's kind of how Samurai is too. I'm kind of rambling at this point. I don't really know. I've still yet to play Monk. I have not played Monk yet, but from what I've heard from people, it's maybe feeling a little empty without the dot and the buff timers, but I don't know. People like Monk. I'll have to try that one out for myself. I've recently leveled Viper as well. I'm not totally jiving with that one. It's a little too simple for my taste, I think. So Samurai has really filled that void in a melee job that I was looking for. I think playing Dragoon and Samurai, being completely opposite melee jobs, they couldn't be further from each other. Gives a really nice variety between the two for me personally. And I'm going to continue playing both of those. I think Reaper falls somewhere in the middle, Ninja as well. You know, everything is kind of on that scale of rigid to freeform. But I really think Samurai is one of the most creative job designs that Square Enix has come up with in this game for Dawntrail. There's a few others, like maybe Pictomancer, but I don't know. Samurai is just one of my favorite jobs right now. There's not much else to say, so I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you for watching. Feel free to hop into the Discord. There's a link in the description if you want to come hang out. Got any questions about the game, about Samurai, about anything else, feel free to hop in there, and be sure to follow the Twitch channel as well as subscribing on YouTube here if you like these videos. So thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next one, and have a good one. Peace.